I stepped deeper into Swabinsky National Park as night draped the forest in thick, restless shadows, a question gnawing at my mind. Could the past ever truly stay buried? The air carried a sharp, unsettling chill that cut through my ranger jacket, the kind that seeps into your bones and lingers. I'd been patrolling these woods for hours, a routine I'd once found comfort in, when I stumbled across it, a fire crackling fiercely in the dark, its flames clawing at the sky, ringed by ancient pines that loomed like silent sentinels. No campers, no hikers, just the eerie glow pulsing like it had a heartbeat of its own. My boots crunched over the pine needles as I edged closer, every instinct I'd honed as a firefighter, screaming that this was wrong. Fires don't burn alone in the wild. I'm Elżbieta, 39, a forest ranger now. But back in Gdańsk, I'd spent years battling blazes that devoured homes and lives. I grabbed a handful of dirt and a canteen of water, tossing them onto the flames, expecting them to hiss and die. Instead, they flared brighter, mocking me with a heat that stung my face. And the smoke twisted upward, forming ghostly shapes that danced in the night. Figures with hollow eyes, one pointing right at me before melting away. That silhouette, it hit me hard. A familiar curve of jaw, a tilt of head I'd carried in my nightmares for years. My breath caught, icy despite the fire's warmth, as the past I'd fled from reared up in the smoke. I'd come to these woods seeking peace, a sanctuary from the flames that still haunted me. Fires I couldn't stop, lives I couldn't save. The forest was my escape, a quiet refuge where the silence drowned out the screams, but now it stared back, pulling me into something I couldn't outrun. This wasn't the first time I'd seen that fire. It had been flickering here for weeks, a stubborn anomaly against the park's stillness. At first, I'd chalked up the faint whispers on the wind to exhaustion, the rustling branches to my imagination running wild after long shifts. But night after night, the flame stayed, defying every rule I knew, and those whispers sharpened into voices, names, pleas, tugging at memories I'd buried deep. The smoke coiled thicker now, the figures taking shape, faces I knew, faces I'd failed. I saw Yannick, the young shopkeeper from that Gdańsk tenement blaze, his eyes wide with panic. Maria, the grandmother I'd pulled too late from the ashes. Their gazes pinned me, a silent chorus of accusation, and my knees buckle under the weight of it. A shiver racing down my spine as the fire's heat clashed with the cold dread in my gut. It hit me then, the fire wasn't just flames. It was a doorway, a thread tying me to spirits lost in a blaze older than me, one that had scarred this forest long before I walked its paths. The whispers grew insistent. Elżbieta. Their voices weaving through the crackling, a call, both seductive and terrifying, urging me to join them, to feed the fire and bind myself to their endless grief. A legacy I'd somehow inherited. The ground shifted under my boots, soft and unsteady, like the forest itself was waking up. And I stood there, torn. Douse the flames and break the link, or let them pull me in? My duty as a ranger screamed too, fight to protect the living. But the past's pull was a siren song, tempting me to surrender to the ghosts I'd never escaped. My hands clenched, dirt still clinging to my fingers, as the choice loomed heavy. Night deepened, the shadows stretching long and dark. And that's when it shifted. Something inexplicable unfurled in the fire's glow, a truth I couldn't dodge. The flames pulsed, alive and hungry, and I felt it in my marrow. This wasn't just a haunting. It was a reckoning, dragging me into a story I hadn't written, but couldn't walk away from. Anna's voice cut through the haze. Elżbieta, sharp and urgent, pulling me back as she stumbled into the clearing, her ranger cap skewed, her flashlight beam slicing the dark. She'd come looking when I didn't check in, her face tight with worry, and for a moment I clung to her presence like a lifeline, a tether to the world I knew. "Are you okay?" she asked, her gaze flicking. From me to the fire, her breath fogging in the chill. I heard shouting, What's happening? Her voice trembled, caught between concern and the unease creeping over her as she took in the unnatural blaze, the smoke curling into shapes no wind could carve. I opened my mouth, words tangling on my tongue. How do you explain ghosts in the flames without sounding like you've lost it? It's not just a fire, Anna, I said, my voice shaky, pointing at the shadows twisting in the smoke. It's alive, tied to people I couldn't save. They want something from me. She squinted, her brow creasing, stepping closer to the blaze, but I grabbed her arm, yanking her back. No, don't, I said, desperation spilling out. It's not safe, it's them, the ones I lost. They're here, and they won't let go. My grip tightened, fear and certainty warring inside me. Anna's eyes softened, but her jaw set firm. You're scaring me, Elżbieta. I get you. Carry the past, but this, we've got to put it out and get you out of here. She pulled free, reaching for her canteen, but I shook my head, the whispers swelling. Join us. Their pull tightening around my heart. The wind shifted, sharp and cold, and the fire roared, a wave of heat slamming into us, the smoke spiraling into sharper forms, faces, hands reaching out. They need me, Anna, I said, my voice breaking, panic clawing up my throat. If I leave, it's like abandoning them again. I can't do that. Anna froze, her canteen half raised, the fire's glow painting her face in flickering reds and golds, and I saw the doubt flicker in her eyes. Doubt and fear, but she didn't back off. You're not abandoning anyone, she said, her voice steady, despite the tremor in her hands. You're not responsible for what happened back then. You were a hero, Elżbieta, but you've got to let them go. The flames snapped, spitting, embers into the night, and the whispers grew louder, Elżbieta. Their voices weaving a rope around my chest, tugging me closer. I wanted to believe her, to walk away, and leave the past in the ashes. But the heat pulsed, alive, and I felt it, their pain, their need, sinking into me like roots into soil. A rustle broke the tension, heavy footsteps crunching through the underbrush, and Marek burst into the clearing, his historian's coat dusted, with pine needles, his gray eyes wide as he took in the scene. What the hell are you two doing out here? He said, his voice rough, catching on the edge of panic as he stared at the fire, its unnatural glow reflecting in his glasses. Marek, I said, relief crashing over me. He'd spent years digging into Słowinski's past, chasing tales of the old blaze that scarred these woods. This fire, it's tied to something, I blurted, my voice raw, stepping toward him. It's alive, pulling me in. Can you help us figure it out? He blinked, his gaze darting from me to the flames, then back, curiosity warring with unease. Tied to something? He echoed, frowning, his hand brushing the notepad in his pocket like it could anchor him. What do you mean, it wants something? You're not making sense, Elżbieta. The ground trembled, a low rumble shaking the dirt under our boots, and the fire flared high, sparks showering the air like angry stars. Look at it, I shouted, pointing at the smoke, the figures sharpening, Janek's hollow stare, Maria's outstretched hand. They're here, the ones I lost, from Gdansk, from before. They're calling me. Anna grabbed my shoulder, her grip tight, steadying me as I swayed. She's not crazy, Marek. This isn't normal, she said, her voice firm, though I heard the shake in it. We need to do something. It's not letting her go. Her eyes flicked to the fire, wary, like it might leap at us. Marek stepped closer, peering into the flames, his face tightening as the smoke coiled into shapes. He saw it too, I could tell. The old fire, he muttered, almost to himself, his voice dropping low. Decades back, it tore through here, killed dozens, left scars in the soil. Could be tied to that. But this is something else. The whispers surged, "Join us!" And I felt them pull, a cold hand wrapping around my heart, tempting me to step into the blaze. They want me with them, I said, my voice cracking, tears stinging my eyes. I can't leave them again. I failed them once already. Anna's hand tightened, her nails digging into my arm. You didn't fail. You fought, Elżbieta. This isn't your burden to carry forever. We'll figure it out, but you've got to stay with us. Her voice was fierce, a lifeline I clung to, but the fire's heat pulsed, insistent, drawing me in. Merrick's eyes narrowed, scanning the flames, then me. "If this is tied to the past, there's a reason it's waking up now," he said, his tone sharp, cutting through the haze. "We need to know more, what it wants, why you. But we can't do it if you give in. Stay with us, all right?" The ground shook again, harder, a deep groan rumbling up from the earth, and the fire roared, its light blinding, the smoke sharpening into faces. Too many now, too clear. "I can't face this alone," I said, my voice breaking, looking at them both, pleading. "Help me, please." Anna nodded, her jaw set, stepping beside me. "We're here. We'll get through this together," she said, her voice steady. Now, a rock against the storm. Merrick's hand hovered over his notepad, then dropped, his resolve locking in. "Let's dig into this, whatever it takes." The flames crackled, hungry and alive, and I felt them watching, waiting, their pull, relentless. My past was here, woven into the fire, and as we stood there, three against the dark, I knew this was just the start, a battle I couldn't walk away from, no matter how deep it cut. The fire blazed hotter, its heat clawing at my skin, and the ground trembled again, a shudder that rattled my teeth as the whispers swelled into a deafening hum. "Elżbieta!" Their voices rapping tight around me. I stumbled back, my boots slipping on the pine needles, and there he was. Tomas, my old firefighting partner, stepping out of the smoke, his eyes hollow, his face etched with the same grief I'd carried since that night in Gdansk. "Elżbieta," he said, his voice a ghostly echo cutting through the roar of the flames. "You promised you'd never forget." My chest seized, air locking in my lungs as I stared at him, his soot-streaked face, the way he'd looked before the roof caved in, before I lost him to the inferno I couldn't stop. "Stop it!" I shouted, shaking my head hard, trying to shove the memory back down. But the shadows tightened, the fire snapping like it fed on my panic. "You're not real! You can't be here!" My voice broke, ragged with denial, tears blurring my vision as he loomed closer, unyielding. Anna's grip clamped onto my arm, firm and desperate, pulling me back. "Elżbieta, focus," she said, her voice sharp, slicing through the haze. "This isn't just you. We're all in this now." Her eyes darted to the fire, wide with fear, but she didn't let go, anchoring me to the moment. Marek edged forward, his coat flapping in the wind, his gaze locked on Thomas's shape. "What do you see?" he asked, urgent, his historian's curiosity warring with the dread creasing his face. "What does he want from you? Tell me." He leaned in, like he could read the smoke itself. "He wants me to remember," I gasped, my heart hammering, tears spilling hot down my cheeks. "Tomas, he died because I couldn't save him. He wants me to accept it." The words tore out, heavy and bitter, and the ground shifted again, a groan from the earth matching the ache in my chest. A flicker of doubt wormed in. What if this was all me, my mind cracking under years of guilt? The fire glared, blinding, the shadows mocking, Thomas towering like a judge from my nightmares. Was this real or just a breakdown, trauma spilling out in the dark? My hands shook, dirt still caked under my nails, as the line between truth and madness blurred. "Listen, Elżbieta," Marek said, his voice steady, cutting through the roar like a lifeline. "This fire, it's tied to something old, something bigger than you. The history here is full of loss, but survival too. We can't let it swallow us whole." He stepped closer, his eyes sharp, pulling me back, then another face in the flames, a jolt that stopped my breath. My mother, her features twisted in pain, her dark hair whipping in the smoke. She'd died in a fire when I was a kid, a blaze I'd always thought was random, an accident, until now. "Mom?" I whispered, disbelief choking me, my knees buckling as the connection slammed home. The fire crackled, wild and fierce, answering. Me and the shadows surged, alive with new energy. Anna's grip tightened, her voice shaking. "Elżbieta, we've got to get you out. This isn't safe. Not for you." She pulled, but my feet wouldn't move, rooted by their stares. Tomas, my mother, a past I couldn't unsee. "No, I can't leave them," I said, my voice trembling, heavy with realization. They're my past, part of me. I can't abandon them again. Tears streamed hot against the cold air, and I felt it. The fire wasn't just guilt, it was truth, clawing its way out of the dark. Part of you, yeah, Merrick cut in. Urgent, stepping between me and the flames. But not all of you. Letting go isn't forgetting, it's breaking free from this weight. His hand hovered near me, steady, and I saw the resolve in him, a lifeline I wanted to grab. The flames roared, a vortex of smoke and memory swirling around us, and I felt the pull, stronger now, tempting me to step in, to join them. Help! Me understand, I said, my voice fracturing, looking at them both. We've got to figure out what happened, why it's here now. The shadows pulsed, hungry and alive, and Anna nodded, fierce despite the fear in her eyes. We're with. We'll dig into this together, she said, her voice a rock I clung to. Marek's jaw set, his hand gripping his notepad like a weapon. Let's uncover it, whatever it takes, he said. And I knew we were in deep, facing a past that wouldn't let go. The fire surged, its heat searing my face, and the ground shook again, a deep tremor rattling through the trees as the whispers turned into a wail. Elżbieta. Their voices a tide pulling me under. I stepped back, my boots slipping on the damp earth, and Tomas loomed closer, his ghostly form, sharp in the smoke, his eyes boring into me with a sorrow I couldn't shake. Elżbieta, he said again, his voice a low echo, heavy with years of pain. You swore you'd carry us. My chest tightened, memories crashing in. The night we'd fought that blaze, the smoke choking us. The moment I'd lost him, when the ceiling gave way, his hand slipping from mine despite my screams. No, stop! Onuri! I yelled, my voice raw, hands clawing at the air as if I could push him back into the past. The flames snapped, spitting embers that stung my skin, and I felt them, their pull, their need, tightening like a noose, the fire roaring as if it fed on my denial. Anna yanked me back, her grip fierce, nails digging into my arm. Elżbieta, stay with us! She shouted, her voice cutting through the wail, her face taut with fear and resolve. This isn't real, it's playing with you. She held tight, a lifeline against the tide dragging me in. Marek circled closer, his eyes locked on the fire, the smoke sharpening into more faces. Too many now, a crowd of the lost. What's he saying? He asked, urgent, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands, his historian's mind racing to piece it together. He wants me to own it, I choked out, tears streaming, my heart pounding against my ribs. Tomas, he's here because I couldn't save him. He wants me to admit I failed. The words burned, bitter and true, and the ground groaned again. The forest mourning with me, doubt clawed deeper. What if I'd cracked, my mind spinning ghosts from guilt? The fire glared, blinding, Thomas's shape towering, and I wondered, was this real or just me, breaking under years of buried pain? My hands shook, dirt caked into my palms, as reality frayed at the edges. Marek's voice sliced through, firm and clear. This isn't just you, Elżbieta. It's the land, the old. Blaze, he said, stepping closer, his coat flapping in the wind. It's tied to history, tragedy, yes, but resilience too. We've got to fight it, not feed it. His words anchored me, a thread to hold on to. Then another flicker in the flames, sharp and gut-punching. My mother's face, her dark eyes, wide with anguish, her hair whipping in the smoke. She'd died in a fire when I was 10, a blaze I'd thought was chance, until now. Mom, I whispered, my voice fracturing, legs buckling as the truth hit. Our losses were linked, deeper than I'd ever known. The fire roared, answering me, and the shadows surged, alive and wild, wrapping around us. Anna's grip tightened, her voice shaking now. Elżbieta, we're getting you out. This isn't safe. She pulled, but I stood frozen, their faces. Thomas, my mother, holding me captive, a past I couldn't leave. I can't abandon them, I said, my voice trembling, tears hot against the chill. They're me, my failures, my guilt. I can't walk away again. The flames pulsed, their heat a siren call, and I felt it. Their pain was mine, a bond I couldn't break. Part of you, not all, Merrick said, urgent, stepping between me and the fire, his eyes sharp. Letting go isn't betrayal, it's survival. You're more than this weight, trust us. His hand hovered steady, and I saw the fight in him, a spark I needed. The smoke swirled, a vortex of memory and grief, and I felt the pull stronger, hungrier, daring me to step in. Help me figure this out, I said, my voice breaking, pleading with them. We've got to know why now, what it wants. My chest heaved, resolve flickering to life. Anna nodded, fierce, her jaw set, tight. We're in this with you, we'll face it together, she said, her voice a rock against the storm. Marek's hand gripped his notepad, his resolve locking in. We'll dig deep, uncover it all, he said, and I knew this fire was our fight now, a past we couldn't ignore. The flames flared high, a wall of heat slamming into us, and the ground bucked again, a deep tremor shaking the pines as the whispers turned into a howl. Elżbieta, their voices a storm I couldn't escape. Tomas loomed, his ghostly shape sharp and unyielding, and my mother's face flickered beside him. Their eyes locked on me, pulling at every scar I'd hidden. Elżbieta, Tomas said, his voice a hollow echo heavy with loss. You can't leave us again. My throat closed, memories flooding back, the Gdansk fire, the heat choking my lungs, Tomas's hand slipping from mine, my mother's screams from a night I'd buried deep. Both lost to flames I couldn't stop. Enough, I shouted, my voice tearing out, raw and desperate, hands clawing at the air to push them back. The fire snapped, embers stinging my face, and I felt it. Their pull tightening, the flames roaring as if they thrived on my fight, daring me to give in. Anna's grip clamped hard on my arm, yanking me back from the edge. Elżbieta, hold. On, she yelled, her voice fierce, cutting through the howl, her eyes wide with panic, but unyielding. This isn't them, it's the fire messing with you. We're here. She held tight, a tether I clung to. Marek stepped up, his coat flapping wild, his gaze darting between the flames and me. What do they want? He asked, sharp and urgent, his voice steady despite the chaos, his hand twitching toward his notepad like he could trap the truth. In ink. Tell us, now! They want me to admit it, I gasped, tears streaming hot, my heart hammering against my ribs. Thomas, my mom. They died because I couldn't save them. They want me to own that failure. The words ripped out, jagged and true, and the ground groaned, the forest trembling with me. Doubt surged. What if this was all in my head, a break from years of guilt? The fire glared, blinding, their shapes towering, and I faltered. Was I seeing ghosts, or just my own shattered mind? My hand shook, dirt grinding into my palms, as reality twisted and frayed. Elżbieta, listen, Marek said, his voice firm, slicing through the roar. This fire's old, tied to the blaze that scarred this place. It's not just you, it's history pulling you in. We can fight it. We've got to. He stepped closer, his eyes sharp, a lifeline in the storm. Then her face again. My mother's, clear and anguished, cutting deeper than Thomas ever could. Mom, I whispered, my voice breaking, legs buckling as the truth slammed home. Her fire wasn't random, wasn't chance. It was tied to this, to me, a thread I'd never seen. Why are you here? The flames roared wild and fierce, answering me, and the shadows surged, wrapping us in their grip. Anna's voice shook, her grip tightening. We've got to get you out. This is too much. She pulled, but I stood rooted, their faces, my mother, Thomas, holding me captive, a past I couldn't flee. I can't leave them, I said, my voice trembling, tears hot against the cold air. They're my guilt, my failures, I can't abandon them again. The fire pulsed, its heat a call I couldn't ignore, and I felt it. Their pain was mine, a bond forged in ash. Part of you, not everything, Marek cut in, urgent, stepping between me and the flames, his eyes burning with resolve. Letting go isn't forgetting, it's breaking free. You're stronger than this, trust us. His hand hovered steady, a lifeline I needed to grab. The smoke swirled, a vortex of grief and memory, and I felt the pull stronger, hungrier, daring me to step in. Help me understand, I said, my voice fracturing, pleading with them. We've got to know why. Why now? What it wants. My chest heaved, resolve clawing through the fear. Anna nodded fierce, her jaw set tight. We're with you. We'll figure it out together, she said, her voice a rock against the tide. Merrick's hand gripped his notepad, his resolve locking in. We'll dig into it. Find the truth, he said, and I knew. This fire was our fight now, a past we'd face as one. The fire surged, its heat a clawing beast, and the ground shook hard, a deep groan splitting the night as the whispers turned into a wail. Elżbieta. Their voices a storm crashing over me. Thomas and my mother loomed in the smoke, their gazes piercing, pulling at every wound I'd buried, and I stumbled, my boots slipping on the damp earth. Elżbieta, Thomas said, his voice a hollow, echo heavy with years of pain. You can't leave us. We're yours. My chest locked, memories flooding in, the Gdansk blaze, the heat searing my lungs. Thomas's hand slipping away, my mother's cries from a fire I couldn't reach, both lost to flames I'd failed to fight. No, stop it, I shouted, my voice raw, hands clawing at the air to shove them back, but the flame snapped, embers stinging my skin, their pull tightening like a chain. You're gone. You can't be here. Tears blurred my vision, hot and fast, as they loomed closer, unyielding. Anna yanked me back, her grip fierce, nails digging into my arm. Elżbieta, stay with us, she yelled, her voice sharp, cutting through the wail, her face taut with fear and resolve. This isn't real, it's the fire. We're here. She held tight, a lifeline against the tide. Merrick circled closer, his coat flapping wild, his gaze locked on the flames. What do they want? He asked, urgent, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands, his historian's mind racing. Tell us, quick. He leaned in, like he could pull the truth from the smoke. They want me to own it. I choked. Out, tears streaming, my heart hammering against my ribs. Thomas, my mom, they died because I couldn't save them. They want me to admit I failed. The words tore out, bitter and true, and the ground groaned, the forest trembling with my confession. Doubt clawed deeper. What if this was me, my mind breaking under guilt? The fire glared blinding, their shapes towering, and I faltered. Was this real or just my sanity cracking? My hands shook, dirt grinding into my palms, as reality twisted, fraying at the edges. Elżbieta, listen, Merrick said, his voice firm, slicing through the roar. This fire's old, tied to the blaze that scarred this land. It's not just you, it's history, pulling you in. We can fight it. He stepped closer, his eyes sharp, a lifeline in the chaos. My mother's face flared again, anguished and clear, cutting deeper than Thomas's ever could. Mom, I whispered, my voice breaking, legs buckling as the truth hit. Her fire wasn't chance, wasn't random. It was woven into this, into me. What are you doing here? The flames roared, wild and fierce, answering me, and the shadows surged, wrapping us tight. Anna's voice shook, her grip fierce. We've got to get you out. This is too much. She pulled, but I stood frozen, their faces, my mother, Thomas, holding me captive, a past I couldn't flee. I can't leave them, I said, my voice trembling, tears hot against the chill. They're my failures, my guilt. I can't abandon them again. The fire pulsed, its heat a call I couldn't ignore, and I felt it. Their pain was mine, a bond forged in ash. Part of you. Not all, Merrick cut in, urgent, stepping. Between me and the flames, his eyes burning with resolve. Letting go isn't betrayal, it's survival. You're more than this. Trust us. His hand hovered, steady, a lifeline I needed. The smoke swirled, a vortex of grief and memory, and I felt the pull, stronger, hungrier, daring me to step in. Help me understand, I said, my voice fracturing, pleading. We've got to know why now, what it wants. My chest heaved, resolve clawing through. Anna nodded, fierce, her jaw set tight. We're with you. We'll figure it out together, she said, her voice a rock against the storm. Merrick's hand gripped his notepad, his resolve locking in. We'll dig deep, find the truth, he said, And I knew this was our fight now, a past we'd face together. The fire surged, its heat a searing wave, and the ground bucked, hard, a deep tremor shaking the trees as the whispers turned into a howl. Elżbieta, their voices a tempest crashing over me. Tomas and my mother loomed, their shapes sharp in the smoke, their eyes piercing me, pulling at every scar I'd buried deep. Elżbieta, Tomas said, his voice a hollow echo, heavy with loss. Join us. You belong here. My throat closed. Memories flooding in. The Gdansk fire, the heat choking my lungs. Thomas's hand slipping as the flames took him. My mother's cries from a blaze I couldn't reach. Both lost to my failures. No, enough! I shouted, my voice tearing out, raw and desperate, clawing at the air to push them back. The flames snapped, embers stinging my face, their pull tightening like a noose, daring me to surrender, to step into the fire and let it claim me. Anna yanked me back, her grip fierce, nails biting into my arm. Elżbieta, hold on, she yelled, her voice sharp, slicing through the howl, her face taut with fear and resolve. This isn't them. It's the fire. We're here. She held tight, a lifeline against the tide. Marek stepped closer, his coat flapping wild, his gaze darting between the flames and me. What do they want? He asked, urgent, his voice steady despite the chaos, his hand twitching toward his notepad. Tell us, now! He leaned in, searching the smoke. They want me to admit it, I choked out, tears streaming, my heart hammering against my ribs. Tomas, my mom, I failed them. They want me to own that. The words ripped out, jagged and true, and the ground groaned, the forest trembling with my confession. Doubt surged. Was this real, or my mind breaking under guilt? The fire glared, blinding, their shapes towering, and I faltered. Was I seeing ghosts, or just my own pain? My hands shook, dirt grinding into my palms as reality frayed, twisting around me. Elżbieta, listen, Marek said, his voice firm, cutting through the roar. This fire's old, tied to the blaze that scarred this place. It's not just you, it's history, pulling you in. We can fight it. He stepped closer, his eyes sharp, a lifeline in the storm. My mother's face flared again, anguished, and clear, cutting deeper than Tomas's ever could. Mom, I whispered, my voice breaking, legs buckling as the truth slammed home. Her fire wasn't random. It was woven into this, into me. What do you want from me? The flames roared, wild and fierce, answering me, and the shadows surged, wrapping us tight. Anna's voice shook, her grip fierce. We've got to get you out. This is too much. She pulled, but I stood frozen, their faces. My mother, Thomas, holding me captive, a past I couldn't flee. I can't abandon them, I said, my voice trembling, tears hot against the chill. They're my guilt, my failures. I can't leave them again. The fire pulsed, its heat a call I couldn't ignore, and I felt it. Their pain was mine, a bond forged in ash. Part of you, not all, Marek cut in, urgent, stepping between me and the flames, his eyes burning with resolve. Letting go isn't betrayal, it's survival. You're stronger than this, trust us. His hand hovered steady, a lifeline I needed. The smoke swirled, a vortex of grief and memory, and I felt the pull, stronger, hungrier, daring me to step in. Help me understand, I said, my voice fracturing, pleading. We've got to know why now, what it wants. My chest heaved, resolve clawing through. Anna nodded fierce, her jaw set tight. We're with you. We'll figure it out together, she said, her voice a rock against the storm. Marek's hand gripped his notepad, his resolve locking in. We'll dig deep, find the truth, he said, and I knew this fire was our fight now, a past we'd face as one. The fire surged, its heat a searing wall, and the ground shook hard, a deep tremor rattling the pines as the whispers turned into a wail. Elżbieta. Their voices a storm I couldn't escape. I stepped forward, pulling Anna and Marek with me, my boots sinking into the soft earth, the flames snapping like they sensed my defiance, their glow painting our faces in shades of red and shadow. Together, Then, Merrick said, his voice cutting through the roar, determination flaring in his eyes as he gripped my shoulder, steadying me against the pull. "We'll find the truth, whatever it takes." His coat flapped wild in the wind, but his stance was firm, a rock beside me in the chaos. "Will you face them with me?" I asked, my voice trembling, barely audible over the fire's crackle, my gaze flicking between Anna and Merrick, pleading for their strength. The shadows loomed. Thomas, my mother, their eyes burning into me, and I felt the weight of their need, their pain tugging me closer. Anna nodded, her jaw tight, her grip fierce on my arm. "We're with you, Elżbieta, no matter what comes," she said, her voice steady now. A lifeline I clung to as the flames pulsed, alive and hungry. Her eyes reflected the fire, but her resolve outshone it, a spark I needed. I took a deep breath, the air thick with smoke and pine, and stepped closer, the heat stinging my face. "Show us," I said, my voice stronger, echoing with a purpose I hadn't felt in years. "Show us what you need, what I need to see." My hands clenched, dirt still caked into my palms as I faced them head-on. The fire flared, a blinding surge that swallowed the clearing, and the world shifted, a vision unfurling in the flames, sharp and brutal. Wooden beams groaned under licking tongues of fire, smoke curled around panicked faces, and screams pierced the air, a cacophony of terror I knew too well. It wasn't just Gdansk, it was here, Słowinski, decades ago. A blaze that ravaged everything. My knees buckled as I saw it. Thomas struggling in the flames, his uniform charred, his hand reaching out as the roof caved. My mother trapped in a different fire, her dark hair whipping wild, her scream cut short by collapsing walls. Tears streamed down my face, hot against the chill as the truth hit. Not accidents, not chance, but a chain of negligence, secrets buried in ash. "Please," I cried, my voice cracking, raw with grief and rage. "What do you want from me?" The flames roared back, a chorus of the lost. Yannick, Maria, dozens more, faces I'd failed, faces I'd never known, all tied to this land, this fire, their pain, a weight I couldn't bear alone. The vision sharpened, families fleeing, survivors weeping, a cover-up whispered in shadowed corners. And I understood. It wasn't just my guilt, it was theirs. A collective agony begging for light, for someone to see. The fire pulsed, its heat softening, and I felt it, a shift, a plea for acknowledgement, not surrender. The flames began to fade, a calm seeping into the chaos, as if the spirits found a flicker of peace in my tears, my voice. The shadows wavered, their forms softening, and I saw Thomas nod, slow and sad, my mother's anguished face easing into something like release, but not fully, not yet. Merrick's hand gripped my arm, his voice low. "What are those?" he asked, pointing at the trees. Symbols etched into the bark, glowing faint in the dimming light, unfamiliar but alive, pulsing with meaning. My heart raced, a new thread tugging at me, a mystery still buried. "I don't know," I said, my voice hoarse, wiping my face with a trembling hand. "But we've got to find out." The fire dwindled to embers, its roar fading to a hiss, and I felt the weight shift, lighter but not gone, a scar I'd carry forever. Anna scanned the clearing, her breath fogging in the cold. "We can't stop here," she said, resolute, despite the shake in her voice. "There's more pain, more truth. We owe it to them, to you." Her eyes met mine, fierce and steady, a promise sealed in the dark. The last embers glowed, and I stood there, Merrick and Anna beside me, a fragile trio bound by what we'd seen. "Let's dig into it," I said, my voice firm, a resolve igniting inside me. "Whatever's left, we'll face it, together." The forest watched, silent and waiting. As we turned from the ashes, the past still whispering, but not alone anymore. The embers flickered low, their faint glow casting long shadows across the clearing, and the air settled, heavy with the scent of charred pine and damp earth. Marek knelt by the nearest tree, tracing the glowing symbols with a shaky finger, his historian's mind already churning, while Anna stood close, her flashlight beam darting over the bark, searching for answers in the dark. We've cracked. Something open, Merrick said, his voice low, rough from the night strain, his eyes glinting with a mix of awe and dread. These marks, they're old, tied to the fire, maybe to something older. We're not done here. His words hung heavy, a truth we couldn't dodge. Hannah turned to me, her face pale but set, her breath fogging in the chill. "You okay?" she asked, softer now, her hand hovering near my shoulder, ready to steady me again. I nodded, slow, my throat tight, the ache of Thomas and my mother still raw, a wound reopened, but not bleeding as fierce. "I'll be all right," I said, my voice hoarse, wiping my eyes with a dirt-streaked sleeve. "They're quieter now, but not gone. There's more to this, more they need us to see." My hands clenched, the weight lighter but still there, a scar I'd carry into whatever came next. The symbols pulsed, faint, but alive, their glow a beacon in the dimness, and I felt it. A pull. A call to dig deeper, to face what I'd only glimpsed. "We've got to understand these," I said, stepping closer, my boots crunching over the ash-dusted ground, resolve hardening inside me. Merrick stood, brushing dirt from his hands, his jaw tight. "They're a key, maybe to the fire, maybe to the spirits," he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his fingers. "This park's got layers, tragedy, secrets. We'll peel them back, Elżbieta, whatever it takes." His eyes met mine, a silent pact. Anna's flashlight swept the clearing, her gaze sharp. "We survived tonight," she said firm, a spark of defiance in her voice. "But we're not leaving it here. There's too much at stake. For them. For you." She stepped beside me, her presence a rock I leaned on, a strength I needed. The Puy-de-Wait forest loomed, its pines silent but watching, their branches swaying slow in the wind. A whisper of what still waited, hidden in the shadows. "We'll come back," I said, my voice low, steady now, a promise to the dead, to myself. "We'll find the truth, set them free." The embers dimmed, their last glow fading into the dirt, and I felt it, a shift, a quiet that wasn't peace, but a pause, a breath before the next fight. Thomas's face lingered in my mind, my mother's too, softer now, but not gone, their pain a thread tying me to this place. Merrick pulled his notepad out, scribbling quick, his hand shaking but sure. "I'll dig into the archives, fires, symbols, anything I can find," he said, his voice tight with purpose. "This isn't over. There's a story here, and we're telling it." His resolve mirrored mine, a fire of its own. Anna's hand brushed my arm, light but firm. "We're not letting you carry this alone," she said, her eyes fierce despite the exhaustion creasing her face. "Whatever's next, we've got your back, always." Her words sank in, a warmth against the cold night. The trees stretched out, endless and dark, their hum faint but alive, a pulse I couldn't ignore. "It's bigger than us," I said low, my voice steady despite the ache. "But we'll face it, together." My chest tightened, a mix of fear and grit locking in, ready for the shadows ahead. The clearing was still now, the fire reduced to ash, but I felt them, watching, waiting, their whispers a murmur on the wind. "We owe them that much," I said, my voice firm, a vow to the lost, to the forest, to the past I'd finally faced, even if it wasn't finished with me. Here's the end of my story, the one I sent in. The night Slowinski pulled me back into the flames I'd run from. I hope it hit you like it hit me, heavy with those ghosts. If it did, leave a like, subscribe if you can, maybe comment something, telling this cut deep reopening scars I'd buried far too long. I walked into the clearing just as dusk settled over the Tongass National Forest, and right then, a wild rush of leaves kicked up around me, spinning into a tight cyclone that whirled and twisted like it had a mind of its own. I tilted my head, back, heart thumping hard against my ribs, and caught sight of birds diving straight at me, not gliding smooth like they should, but jerking through the air, wings flapping backward, like someone had snapped time in half right there in front. of me. My breath hitched, stuck in my throat. What the hell was going on? I'm Logan Hargrove, 34, a forest ranger, rooted deep in this massive stretch of southeast Alaska, where old trees tower like giants and secrets hide in every shadow. The air's always heavy here, soaked with the smell of wet dirt and pine needles, sharp and alive. This place has been my haven for years, a quiet escape from the noise of the world, but lately, it's turned into something else, something I can't wrap my head around. Weeks now, I've seen winds twist into weird, endless loops, birds caught in mid-flight like they're stuck in some broken replay. It's a circus of chaos, and I'm the unwilling front-row watcher. I've been trying to keep track of it, jotting notes in this beat-up notebook I carry. Pages smudged with dirt and scribbles that don't even make sense anymore. One minute, the sun's dipping low, painting everything gold. The next, shadows stretched too long, too fast, like the rules of light and dark got tossed out. What used to be my safe spot, this endless sprawl of green, feels like a puzzle now. Every corner peeling back to show something wilder, something I can't figure out. That night in the clearing, though, it all started clicking, or unraveling, depending how you look at it. The wind cranked up, howling loud, and I felt this tug, not just on my jacket, but inside me, pulling at something deep, something I didn't even know was there. My chest tightened as it hit me. These weren't random gusts or freaky weather. Tricks. They were cracks, holes in reality itself, busted open by something way beyond me. Those birds, not just flying weird, they were trapped, snagged in a loop that could swallow everything. My pulse raced, hammering in my ears as the truth sank in. I wasn't just watching this, I was getting dragged into it, caught up in some fight bigger than these woods, bigger than me. Whatever this was, it wanted an anchor, a way to spill out into our world, and I was starting to feel like the perfect fit. The forest I knew, its tall pines, its mossy streams, was turning into a twisted maze, time bending and snapping, laughing at me while I tried to keep my grip. Old memories started creeping in, heavy and sharp, cutting through the panic. I came here years back, running from the ache of losing my little sister, Mia. Her laugh used to bounce off these trees when we'd trek out together. She was barely a teen, all giggles and wild ideas. Then she was gone, taken too soon by a dumb twist of fate, and I thought maybe her spirit stuck around here, guiding me through the grief. Now, though, it felt like the forest was mocking me, chewing up her memory and spitting it back in this mess. The last streaks of daylight got swallowed by the dark, and that's when it went sideways. The wind screamed, loud and raw, and the air lit up, shimmering like liquid glass. I felt it, a whisper, old and heavy, brushing against my mind, calling me deeper into whatever this was. My gut twisted. I was teetering on the edge of something huge. An answer, maybe, but the question burned. Louder, could I walk through this and come out whole? Time, reality, my own damn life, everything was on the line, and I was about to get thrown headfirst into a fight I didn't even understand. That cyclone raged around me, leaves whipping past like a storm with teeth, and a voice cut through. "Logan, over here!" Sharp, familiar, edged with worry. I spun and saw Sarah shoving her way out of the brush, my ranger partner, her face tight with strain, hair plastered across her cheeks from the wind. "Goddamn, I'm glad you're here," she yelled, brushing strands loose as she stumbled closer. "I've been looking all over. This thing's getting worse, isn't it?" I nodded, throat dry as sandpaper. "Yeah, you see it too? The birds, the wind. It's like everything's coming apart." My voice shook a little, and I hated that she'd hear it, but Sarah just stepped up, her eyes narrowing as she took it all in. "I've been tracking weird stuff up north," she said, breath quick. "Trees bending like something's pushing. Animals freaking out, running backward, circling, you name it. Thought I was losing it, but this?" She waved at the chaos around us. "This is real. Sarah's always been the sharp one, tough, quick to figure things out, and I've leaned on that more times than I'd admit. Seeing her rattled now, though, that hit different. It meant we were both neck-deep in this, but maybe together we could claw our way out. I grabbed her arm, fingers digging in a little too hard. "We've got to stop it, Sarah, before it takes us. I can't do this by myself." My voice cracked, raw with everything piling up, but I meant it. Alone I was sinking. With her I might stand a chance. She looked past the clearing into the dark, her jaw tight. Heard stories growing up, old ones, about the Tongass being a doorway to other places, where time and space don't play by our rules. Could be that's what's breaking open here. Her words hung heavy, and I felt a shiver crawl up my back. Folklore I'd laughed off as a kid, suddenly sounding way too close to the truth. "What do we do then?" I asked, voice low, trying to keep it steady. Before she could answer, the air got thick, real thick, like it was pressing down on us, and a figure stepped out from the trees. Tall, lean, wild-haired, clothes torn like he'd walked out of some old story. His eyes cut through the gloom, sharp and old. "You're messing with stuff you don't get," he said, voice rough but smooth, like a river over rocks. "This ain't your fight, not yet." "Who are you?" I barked, stepping in front of Sarah, instinct kicking in hard. My hands balled up, ready for whatever he was. Threat, trick, something worse. "Name's Cale," he said, eyes flicking. "Between us, been watching these woods longer than you've been breathing. You've stirred up forces that shouldn't be touched. Time's ripped open, and you're caught in it. Tread light." "What's that mean?" Sarah snapped, her voice cutting through, steady even with the wind howling. She wasn't backing down, and I felt a surge of pride mixed with dread. She was in this as deep as me. Cale's face softened, just a hair, like he pitied us. "Forest is alive, it remembers everything. Time's busted here, trapping more than birds and leaves, lives, souls, all tangled up. You've got to go deeper, find the root of it. But it'll test you, body and mind." My stomach knotted, uptight. I came here to heal, not to fight some cosmic mess. But now? "What have I got left to lose?" I muttered, half to myself, feeling the weight of Mia's ghost pressing down. Cale gave a slow nod, like he'd heard that kind of talk before. "Face your past, Logan," he said low. "This place drags up what's buried. Your fears, your ghosts. Only way to fix it is through them." Sarah locked eyes with me, a mix of grit and worry shining there. "We're in this together, right?" she said firm. "For the forest. For us." I sucked in a breath, steadying myself. This was bigger than I'd ever bargained for, but running wasn't an option. Not with them beside me. The wind screamed, shadows stretching long, and I took that first step into the dark, heart pounding, ready, or at least pretending to be, for whatever came next. The deeper we went, the heavier the air got, pressing on my chest like a wet blanket. Trees loomed taller, their branches creaking slow and eerie, like they were muttering secrets I couldn't catch. That feeling, the forest watching us, itched at the back of my neck, making every step feel like a dare. "Logan," Sarah whispered, her voice thin against the rustling leaves. "You think it's true? The forest pulling up our fears?" She kept pace beside me, her boots crunching soft on the damp ground, eyes darting to every shadow. I shrugged, but it wasn't casual. Doubt was chewing me up inside. Mia's laugh echoed in my head, bright and gone, tangled with older stuff, Dad's yelling, the crash that took my little brother, Ethan, years back. "Dunno," I said, forcing it out, "but it's hitting too close to home to ignore." The guilt I'd buried was clawing its way up, and I hated how it fit this mess. Kyle moved ahead, his shape flickering like he wasn't all there, like a ghost slipping through the trees. "You've got to face it, Logan," he called back, voice steady but heavy. "Forest'll show you what you need, whether you're ready or not." Then the ground shook, a low rumble rolling up through my boots, knocking me off balance. I grabbed Sarah's arm, steadying us both. What the hell was that? I snapped, panic spiking hot in my throat, eyes scanning the dark for whatever was coming. Cale spun fast, his face tight with something close to fear. "We ain't alone out here." His words hung sharp, and before I could push back, light. Flared, bright, blinding, followed by a roar that shook my bones. I threw a hand up, squinting, and when it cleared, everything was wrong. Trees twisted black and warped like they'd burned without fire, and in the middle stood her, a woman shadowed, but familiar in a way that stopped my heart. "Logan," she said, voice soft and haunting, cutting through the noise like a blade. "You remember me, don't you?" "Oh, it's just, I didn't know her. Swear I didn't, but something deep, something old said I did, and it scared the hell out of me." "Who are you?" I choked out, stumbling back, legs shaky. My hands went cold, clammy, like I was a kid again, facing something I couldn't fight. "I'm why you're here," she said, calm, her words dripping with a strange, sad weight. "Our past ties us to this forest. It's time you see what you've locked away." Her eyes glinted, unearthly, pulling me in even as I fought it. Sarah's grip tightened on my arm, her voice sharp. "Logan, what's happening?" She was scared. I could feel it, but she stood firm, and that kept me from falling apart right then. "She says my brother's here," I muttered, voice cracking as her words sank in the shadows, part of this mess. Ethan, little Ethan, gone since that crash, his screams still ringing in my skull after all these years. "No, he's dead," I yelled, chest tearing open with the pain I'd stuffed down. "You left him," she hissed, voice twisting sharp, cutting deep. "Now the forest wants its due." Shadows surged, flashing pictures, Ethan laughing, the wreck, his cries as I froze, too late to save him. It hit like a fist, raw and real, knocking me back. "Logan!" Sarah yanked me, desperate. "It's a trick, don't let it in." But it was too late. The truth was spilling out, messy and brutal, and I could feel the forest eating it up, loving every second of my breakdown. Cale's face loomed close, worry carved deep. "Hold on, this ain't just you," he said low, and I saw it. His own ghosts flickering in his eyes. Sarah too, she was shaking, caught in this with me. The forest wasn't just mine to fight, it was ours, all tangled up in whatever dark game it was playing. The air got tight, squeezing us as we pushed deeper, shadows jumping wild around us. "Together," I said, voice rough, forcing it out. "We face it, whatever's coming." Sarah nodded, fierce, and Cale gave a grim tip of his head. We were in it now, no turning back. That roar hit again, loud, shaking the ground, and a crack split open, dark, swirling, pulling hard. Ethan's laugh echoed up from it, mixed with regret I'd carried too long. "Show me," I yelled, stepping up, heart pounding. "I'm done running." The shadows screeched, the woman's shape flickering mad, and I felt it. Truth rushing in, ready to break me or set me free. Kyle lunged. "Logan, no!" But I was already falling, caught between the pull and the fight to hold on. Sarah's voice fading as I went under. I dropped into that chasm, fear clawing at me even as I pushed back with everything I had. Memories wrapped tight. Ethan's voice, "Logan, help!" And the guilt hit like a wave, heavy, drowning. But Sarah and Cale flashed in my head, their faces sharp, and I wouldn't let them down. Not like before. "I'm not my past," I roared, voice tearing out, and light busted loose from me, bright and hot, shredding the dark. The woman screamed, her shape cracking into smoke, and the chasm shook, but I held steady, shoving against the weight, trying to pull me under. Light blasted out, peeling back the shadows, and the forest softened, dawn creeping in, air easing up. I staggered, breathing hard, hands scarred from the fight, each mark a piece of what I'd faced. The guilt wasn't gone, but it was lighter, less choking. "Logan!" Cale's shout broke through, pulling me back. He was at the edge, eyes wide. "You good?" I nodded, shaky. "Faced it, but it's not done." Sarah stepped up, pale but solid. "We made it, for now." Something lingered, though, a hum in the air, a secret not fully cracked. "Forest still has stuff buried," I said, voice raw. Cale's jaw tightened. "Could come back, her too." His words stung, but they were true. We weren't clear yet. We headed out, woods calmer but watchful, and a shadow flicked, quick, gone. "See that?" I whispered, turning to him. "What?" Cale asked, squinting. "Her left something," I said, pointing to a faint trail, snaking deeper. Sarah traced it, cautious. path, hidden, goes further in. We swapped looks, wary, wired, and kept moving, scars itching, a pull nagging at me. This wasn't the end. It was a breather, and whatever weighted down that trail wasn't letting go. The air got heavy again, shadows twitching as we went deeper, trees curling like they knew us. My head spun, bits of memory off, like they didn't fit right. This forest, this fight, wasn't just real. It was me, twisted up in my own mess, a mirror I couldn't break. "Logan, you okay?" Sarah's voice cut in, soft but sharp. I met her eyes, digging for the guts I'd lost somewhere back there. "Think I've been lying to myself," I said low. "This place, it's my head, my fears, and I've got to pick. Stay stuck or bust out." Cale frowned, stepping close. "What are you saying?" I sucked in air, heavy with it. "Stay, I get answers. Lose you, maybe everything. Break free, I risk it all." The shadows pulsed, showing Ethan, Mia, a life I could have had. Then, a blank ahead, free but empty. I chose. Not staying, I'm breaking out. The forest screamed, everything ripping apart, ground dropping fast. Sarah and Cale's faces, scared, hopeful, were the last I saw before it all went black, falling through, chasing a truth I might never catch. Well, that's my tale. Everything I went through out there. Hope it hit you somehow. If it did, leave a like, subscribe, maybe drop a comment. Took a lot to lay this out. Digging up all that hurt's no picnic. But it's yours now, so thanks for sticking with me. On a gray and overcast day, I stood mesmerized, drawn to a puddle nestled in the damp earth of the Daintree rainforest, its surface glittering with a reflection of a starry sky as vivid as midnight. I'm Callum, a 32-year-old park ranger here in Queensland, Australia, and this is my tale, Scary Horror Stories, Park Ranger Edition. The sky above was a solid slab of gloom, yet the puddle shimmered with constellations I knew by heart, an impossible beauty that stopped me cold. I leaned closer, my breath fogging in the humid air, captivated by the celestial dance trapped in murky water. Then it came, a deep resonant hum rising from the ground, vibrating through my boots. The roots of the ancient trees around me quivered, trembling like the strings of a finely tuned violin, each shudder producing a tone so alien it made my teeth clench in discomfort. The sound wasn't just strange, it was wrong, a frequency that didn't belong in our world, pulsing through the soil like a living thing. My heart thudded against my ribs, a frantic rhythm matching the forest's eerie song, as I scanned the dense canopy, half expecting the gray clouds to part and reveal the stars I saw below. I've spent years in this rainforest, surrounded by the rustling leaves of giant ferns, the vibrant calls of lorikeets, and the ceaseless drone of cicadas, a symphony I'd come to love. As a musician at heart, always chasing a melody to make my name, I've got an ear for sound, but this was beyond anything I'd ever dreamed of capturing. Lately, though, the Daintree's music had shifted. Something unsettling crept into its notes. These puddles, dark and unassuming under the overcast sky, started showing starfields that shouldn't exist, their reflections glowing with an otherworldly clarity that defied the daylight above. I'd tried to record it countless times, setting up my old handheld recorder near the puddles, hoping to trap that haunting resonance. But every file warped, twisting into distorted echoes, a mockery of the raw beauty I'd heard, as if the forest refused to let me hold its secret. It felt alive, this place, a pulsating entity watching me, listening, its roots threading through. The earth like veins, I could sense it waiting, biding its time, and the closer I got to understanding, the more it pulled me toward a ledge I wasn't sure I could climb back from. That day, the vibrations hit harder, a shiver racing up my spine. As the ground beneath me trembled, I stood by a massive puddle, its starry surface rippling, and the forest went still, no birds, no wind, just a held breath. The roots thrummed with urgency, a call I couldn't ignore. I glanced around, expecting a cassowary or some startled beast, but nothing moved. Yet the sound grew, magnetic, tugging at me like a siren's lure, urging me to join its chaotic harmony. My chest tightened, part dread, part thrill, as I fought the pull, my boots rooted to the spot. Faces from my past flickered in my mind. My mother, her violin singing through our cramped flat, her dreams traded for a steady job. My father drowning his grief in whiskey after she was gone. Their struggles fueled me, shaped my hunger for recognition, my fear of fading into nothing. It was a tightrope I'd walked my whole life, ambition teetering against failure. And here, in the rainforest's grip, it felt razor thin. The sound swelled, the puddle stars pulsing like living notes in a melody I couldn't grasp, each twinkle a stab at my resolve. Twilight deepened, the air thickening with a strange electric hum. I felt reality shift, a crack in the world I'd known, and a chill settled in my bones. Something was coming, something that'd break the Daintree's fragile peace and unravel me with it. I stood there, recorder in hand, the weight of the unknown pressing down. The forest wasn't just my workplace anymore, it was a stage, and I was caught in its spotlight, teetering on the edge of a mystery I couldn't turn away from. Night fell, and that's when it went wild. Something so inexplicable, it flipped. Everything I thought I understood upside down. Night swallowed the Daintree, and the forest morphed, the familiar chatter of insects and rustle of leaves fading into a silence that stretched tight, like a bowstring ready to snap. The puddle stars burned brighter, casting ghostly flickers across the wet ground, tempting me to step closer, to give in to their pull. My heart hammered, caught between awe and terror as I edged nearer, the air buzzing with an energy I couldn't name. The ground quaked again, sharper this time, and I stumbled, boots skidding on the slick earth, barely catching myself. A shadow moved, someone stepping from the dark. My breath hitched as she emerged into the puddle's faint glow. Ava, my fellow ranger, my anchor in this madness. Her long, dark hair danced in the breeze, but her eyes, usually sharp with grit, were wide, shadowed with fear. "Callum, you need to get out of here," she whispered, voice tight, as if the trees might overhear. "I've been hearing things, sounds that don't fit. It's not safe anymore." Her hands clenched, knuckles pale in the dim light. I shook my head, stubbornness flaring, the same drive that kept me chasing music no one else heard. "The sounds, Ava, they're incredible, like the forest is speaking. I can't just leave. It?" My words trembled, thin against the weight of what I felt. "Or warning us," she snapped, brow creasing with worry. "You don't get it. I've seen things. Last week, tourists vanished near here, left nothing but a puddle like that one glowing like a damn doorway. They couldn't resist it, just like you." Her words iced my spine. I wanted to brush them off, call it nerves, but her stare held me. The pull was real, a whisper promising everything I'd ever wanted, teetering against the fear of losing myself to it. "I can't walk away," I said, voice cracking under the strain. "What if this is it? My chance to finally be something, to make a mark?" The ambition I'd nursed for years clawed up, desperate and raw. "Is that worth dying for?" Ava shot back, frustration spilling out. "I know that hunger. I've lived in my dad's shadow forever, clawing for my own spot. But we can't let it blind us, Callum. This isn't just about you anymore." Her words hit like a punch, dragging up my parents, Mom's lost dreams, Dad's broken ones. Their weight pressed on me, mixing with my need to prove myself, a storm I couldn't quiet. The ground shook harder, cutting us off. The puddle churned, a dark swirl forming in its heart. That resonant hum roared back, loud enough to rattle my skull, drowning out our fight. "We're not alone," I muttered, pulse racing as the puddle bubbled, spitting cold droplets that stung my skin. A shape rose from its depths, shadowy, warped, bending the air around it. "Run!" I yelled, grabbing Ava's arm, yanking her back. But the shadow split, tearing her from my grip. her scream slicing through the night. "Callum!" Raw with terror. I froze, the forest a maze. Of dread now, my sanctuary turned predator. I wasn't just a ranger anymore. I was prey, caught in a mystery that had already taken Ava and wouldn't let me go. The shadows writhed like smoke, and I plunged deeper, dread surging as Ava's scream echoed in my skull. Her fear fueled me. I couldn't lose her, not like I'd lost everything else. The trees twisted, trunks bending impossibly, the air crackling with a charge that prickled my skin. Was this the forest's trick, or was my mind cracking? I'd always clung to reason, but now it slipped, doubt gnawing at its edges. I stumbled, hitting my knees as the ground shifted. Memories crashed in, sharp and unrelenting. Me, as a kid, traipsing these woods with Mom and Dad, their laughter a warm hum, until the crash took them, left me broken. Mom's tales spun back, Daintree spirits, travelers lost to its depths. "It guards its secrets," she'd said, reverence, and fear in her voice. Had I inherited her reckless spark, or just ignored the warnings? What if the shadows weren't just out there, but me, my fears, my guilt feeding this nightmare? The ambition that drove me was a double-edged blade, cutting me open now. Ava's whisper hit again. "Callum." Soft, intimate, mixed with other voices, lost souls crying out. My heart thudded. I wasn't alone, but who were they, real or ghosts? I had to find her, but more. Confront whatever this was, whatever it wanted. The forest pulsed, a player in this twisted game, laughing low through the trees. A light flickered ahead, pulsing, alive, drawing me like a moth. It was the truth, I knew it, but a trap too, luring me deeper into the abyss. The laughter swelled, chilling, my spine iced as I understood. The forest wasn't just scenery, it was alive, with motives dark and deep, waiting for me to step into its play. I pushed toward the light, boots sinking in mud, the shadows coiling tighter, a barrier, daring me to break through. "Callum!" Ava's cry cut sharp, desperate. I couldn't falter, not now, not with her in its grip. The path glowed, stars in the puddle flaring. I was on the edge, teetering between saving her and losing myself. I'd face it, whatever it was, because running wasn't an option anymore. Not from this, not from me. The forest wasn't done. It wanted me, and I'd meet it head on, ready or not. That laughter roared, a drum in my chest as I neared the light, shadows swirling to block me. My breath raced, air thick with fear, tasting of wet earth and rot. "Callum!" Ava's voice slashed through, raw. I froze, torn between running and fighting, the light dimming like it felt my doubt. A figure stepped from the dark, Mom radiant as memory, but her eyes drowned in sorrow. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, voice a breeze that chilled me. "Mom?" I choked, disbelief crashing in. Was she real? "This place knows your pain," she said. "Face it, or it traps you." "Where's Ava?" I demanded, voice rising. "She's lost in shadow," she answered, "but only you can free her. Face what you've buried." "Ava!" I shouted, but a deeper voice hissed, "It's not her." And I spun, searching, caught in a haze of grief and hope. The shadow laughed, Mom's form twisting into malice, eyes burning hate. "You can't escape. You're mine," it sneered, tendrils choking my throat. I gasped, the truth hit. My ambition, my guilt, fed this thing. I wasn't just fighting it, I was fighting me. "Show me!" I roared, fists clenched, light surged. A path cutting through shadow to a gnarled obsidian tree. Voices screamed, Ava's among them, calling me to face it. The forest pulsed, demanding, I see, feel, everything I'd dodged. I stepped in, shadows clawing. The tree loomed, my regrets carved into its bark, a mirror of my soul. My past crushed me, Mom's dreams, Dad's fall, my failures, a weight I couldn't outrun. "Together," I muttered, boots sinking as I reached for the light. Ava's fate and mine tangled tight. This was it, my reckoning, and I'd face it full on, whatever it cost. The voices peaked, shards of my past slicing through as the tree towered, its branches clawing skyward. Shadows swarmed, a dark mass morphing into my fears. Loss, rage, guilt, a monster wearing my face. "Face me," it hissed, my own voice twisted, tendrils throttling me. I choked, truth cutting sharper than the grip. I'd run from grief, losing Ava snapped it back. I wasn't just fighting this. I had to own it, the pain I'd buried. "No more," I screamed, summoning Ava's laugh, our shared promises. Light flared, pushing the dark back, loosening its hold. Shadows shrank, Ava's face flickering in them. Her smile, alive, I reached. Brushing the dark and it shattered, silence falling hard. I stumbled, gasping. The clearing shifted, lighter now, tension lingering like a held breath. The tree softened, roots cradling a locket. Ours, Ava and me, faded but real. My heart raced. She was near. "Callum!" Her voice, alive. I turned, relief flooding as she stood, eyes wide, marked by shadow but here. "We've got to go," I urged, glancing at the dark beyond. It wasn't gone, just waiting. The forest pulsed, whispers soft. I'd faced it, but more lurked, a deeper truth still hidden. "Ava," I said, gripping her hand. We'd survived, but the scars stayed, physical and raw. Shadows flickered, a figure watching. Intent veiled, I knew this wasn't over. We stepped away, the weight of our fight heavy, but I'd keep digging, unraveling the Daintree's dark heart. The forest wasn't done with us. It'd call again, and I'd answer, ready or not. Forest's pulse thrummed, alive in my bones. I'd face the dark and come out stronger, scars and all. Shadows lingered, softer now. I focused, feeling them bend, a shield born from my will, not fear. "Listen!" I shouted, voice booming. The dark quivered, answering me, a power I'd claimed. "Together we rewrite this," I said. Ava's eyes lit, and shadows coiled around us, guarding, not gripping. We weren't just survivors. We could reshape this place, free the lost, turn pain to purpose. The air crackled, a new path glowing. We'd only begun the unknown, whispering ahead. Well, that's my tale. I hope it got under your skin. If it did, leave a like, subscribe, maybe comment. Spilling this out, this piece of me, wasn't easy, so I'd appreciate knowing you felt it too.